Page 213. So if I have x times y is equal to 0, what are two possible answers? What is it? One of them has to be 0, right? So you could theoretically divide off the x and get y is equal to 0 over x. Anything divided, 0 divided by anything is 0. Or you could divide off the y and get x is equal to 0 over y, in which case you get 0. So one of them or both of them have to be 0. Okay, whenever anything multiplies to 0, one or both have to be 0. So if I have x minus 3 is equal to 0, what does x need to be?
0.
It has to be 3, right? So this is just, if I move the 3 over, I get x is equal to 3. If I have x plus 1 is equal to 0, x would be negative 1. Now, if I take those two brackets and I multiply them, I say x minus 3 times x plus 1 has to equal 0. Then either x has to be, what makes this bracket 0?
3.
What makes this bracket 0?
Negative 1.
So x is either 3 or negative 1. Okay, so this just says they're being multiplied. So it's whatever makes each bracket 0. It doesn't matter if you have a constant term in front of it. That makes no difference. You just look at what makes each bracket 0 if the whole thing is equaling 0. So in order to make this bracket 0, x would be 3. In order to make that bracket 0, x would be negative 1. Okay, so now if I have a polynomial set equal to 0, x squared minus 9x plus 20 is equal to 0. You don't know how to solve those. Up until this point, if I give you a question like that, I would have an x squared on this side, so the x squareds would disappear, right? But now we don't have that. The x squareds are still there. They don't go away. So if you have a polynomial that equals 0, you factor it. This is a factoring unit, so factor it. So we're asking ourselves, what multiplies to 20 and adds to negative 9? Negative 4, negative 5. So I get x minus 4, x minus 5 is equal to 0. All I did was factor this polynomial, and it still equals 0. Now, you take each bracket. This is like what we just did up here. You just take each bracket and you say, okay, what makes x minus 4 equal to 0 or x minus 5 equals 0? What makes x minus 4 equal 0? What makes x minus 5 equal 0? So those are your solutions, 4 and 5. So with these are called quadratics. If it's a degree 2 polynomial, this called a quadratic, you can have two answers. Okay. So let's look at this one. X squared minus 81 is equal to 0. So the first thing you ask yourself, does the whole thing equal 0? Is it written that way?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so then what do? You factor. What type of factoring is this? It's a difference of squares. So what's the square root of 81? So this turns into x plus 9. X minus 9 is equal to 0. Once you write it like that, you just ask yourself, what makes each bracket equal to 0? So what makes the first bracket equal 0? What makes the second bracket equal 0? Those are your answers. That's it. That's all you do. B. Is it set equal to 0? Yes. What type of factoring is it? It's two terms separated by a minus sign. So you think difference of squares. I can square root everything in there. What's the square root of 4? Square root of x squared. Square root of 9. So you get 2x plus 3. So what do we do to solve this? So you ask yourself, what makes each bracket equal to 0? So if you don't see it right away, you can literally just go 2x plus 3 has to equal 0, and then solve for x. So I'm going to move the 3 over and divide off the 2. What's the answer for the other bracket? It'll be positive 3 over 2 because you do the exact same thing. Just take the bracket, set it equal to 0, move the 3 over, and then divide off the 2. All right, C. It's set equal to 0. So what's the first thing you do? What's the second thing you do, I guess? Factor. What is always your first step? Well, at the very top of your green sheet, what does it say? Greatest common factor. Is there a greatest common factor in here? And 10x. Which leaves what in the brackets? X minus 9. Okay. So now ask yourself, what makes this bracket 0? X is equal to 9. Does everybody agree with that? What makes that 0? What number times 10 will give you 0? If you have an x by itself outside, then 0 is one of your answers. How do you get what? This? Because you're taking, essentially you're doing this. You're saying, okay, x minus 9 has to equal 0, right? So you move the 9 over and you get x equal to 9. Or 10x has to equal 0. And if you divide off the 10, you get x is equal to 0. 10x squared minus 90 is equal to 0. What's the first step you always do? Greatest common factor, which is? Now what do you do? You factor this, which is a difference of squares. So what does x equal? X is equal to plus or minus 3. Whatever makes the brackets equal to 0 with the variable. The 10 is irrelevant out there. Okay. Factor it. Take each bracket, set it equal to 0. That's it. All I want you to do is number 1, please. Just a tiny, tiny one. Yeah. Just number 1, please.
Come on, get a strike out. Get a strike out.
So like to put it on a quiz like or in a test, like to format it, would you just do like X?
I just say solve for X.
Like the first one, it's X is 2 or negative 7.
That's it.
Just write X.
They were indicated the same.
Maybe he was
Name 5 players on the team. You like pick what type of 2. I'm if Henry. I'll probably get knocked out. I'll cheer for Iran. Two you cheer for laughing.
The letters from numbers and math.
If you don't cheer for the Canada team, cheer for the team. If you cheer for the team closest to you. So you choose. I kind of like You should always try and do 7 plus 0. Yeah. Something gossip. I mean, gossip. John Schneider was Come on, yeah. Wait. Oh, John Schneider. So there's the first one. So that's the
The X plus I was 5 has to be 0. But was this one?
I'm waiting for Seattle. I always shoot, since I live in Toronto, I always shoot Toronto. My second favorite always. But I really it's the least I don't know.
Yeah. And then you divide them into two. And then it's five is
Five into
positive.
What are you doing?
This.
And then I go to what is it? And then I go to
This way.
Yeah. If you check the empty can, it's the empty.
Right? Solving that.
Oh, it's because we're gazing. Who else lost
What do you two want?
Can I see the question we like answer to as well? Because I don't know which one it was.
Oh, this should be good. You want to see your test?
Yeah.
It's in there.
I gotta remember how to do this.
This is grade 10 factoring. Come on. Oh my gosh.
I'm looking at everyone's scores.
Just don't tell them.
No way, Colin got so good. I didn't know you were smart.
Oh yeah. You just still did well.
No, I didn't. It's 88. That's so bad. Which question was it?
All right,
Was it this
14? 13.
13? This one? C. How is it C?
Okay, how is this one different than the other ones that we did? It's not equal to 0. So you can't just set each bracket equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, you have to move everything to the side with all the x's. Okay? And you've got to get rid of the brackets. So you've got to multiply out the brackets, FOIL out the brackets. That's your first step. Oh, do you want to write it on here?
Oh, okay.
It's being recorded.
Okay.
It's like a guest lecture.
Do I get to choose the color? What is, I don't know.
What do you do?
I don't know. I chose this one and then it didn't work. Hold on. Cool. There we go.
You just write it. You don't have to actually do it. You just write the answer.
Oh, okay. So X equals to. Oh, am I not supposed to do that? Ugh, everything, just, whatever. And then negative.
Everything you say is being recorded. Equals 12.
I was getting.
Okay, so she's foiling it out. It's a difference of squares, so you're going to get x squared minus 4 is equal to 12. There we go. Okay? Everybody understand that? So we just got rid of the brackets. And now we're going to move this 12 to this side because we always want it to equal 0. All right? So you subtract 12 from both sides. And you get x squared minus 16 is equal to 0. Now that looks like the other ones that we had. We have function equaling 0. So what do you do with the function? You don't know what to do in this class, considering we're in the factoring unit. What do you do? Just, yeah, factor. So how do you factor x squared minus 16? It's a difference of squares. So it's x plus 4, x minus 4.
No space.
Are we doing the next question?
Yeah.
You need to. Okay.
So what does x equal? 4 and negative 4, that's it. So we've just increased, like, one extra step is if it doesn't equal 0, you expand out the brackets, get everything to one side, and then factor. Is that okay? All right, this is the last question for today.
Sorry. Okay, I don't like that color anymore.
Okay. What's wrong with the way this is written?
It's not equal.
It doesn't equal 0. So is there any brackets to expand?
No.
No. So what do we do with the 25? Pull it over to the other side.
I didn't like the other one. Ah, X. Okay.
What? Okay, well that's supposed to be 5x squared plus 30x plus 25.
It is.
Equals 0. All right, so we have our function equaling 0. What do we do now? Factor. What is the very first step of factoring? Greatest common factor. What's the greatest common factor of 5, 30, and 25?
5.
Pull out a 5. Okay. So we get 5 times x squared plus 6x plus 5. What do we do now? Is it a difference of squares? So the only other kind that you have is what multiplies to the last term and adds to the middle term. What multiplies to 5 and adds to 6?
1 and 5.
1 and 5. So what does x equal? -1 and -5. All right. Are we okay?
Yeah, with this stuff, but it's 1.4, I'm like 7.
Thanks.
Numbers 2 and 3, please.
This is the last question.
Just write 2 and 3 on there at the bottom.
Whatever.
Anywhere.
Two
What?
number.
That's it. And then click that button. Click on that. And then hit stop.
I'm so confused.